So I'm going to break my page into 3 and I'm going to do it this way. So I've got section A over here, which is the start of the exam paper, then section B over here, and then finally section C. Okay, and this is, I'm just going to put it in brackets there, paper 2. Now paper 2 can be a bit tricky compared to paper 1, so I just want to get rid of all the confusion and make it as simple as possible. In the first section, they will ask you about urban growth. Okay, so it'll be something to do with cities or growth of megacities around the world. So that's a global question that could come up. And if I do a case study, I'll put a little star next to it. The one I do in my school is Lagos. Okay, other schools might do Rio de Janeiro, for example. Now you need to be prepared to talk about the importance of Lagos, and that's regionally, nationally and globally. You need to be able to talk about the causes of growth, so that's things like natural increase and rural to urban migration, push-pull factors. And then always opportunities, so social, economic, environmental and challenges. So whatever city you're doing, you can apply these to. And then you also need to have your example of urban planning. So that could be your Makoko floating school or your bus rapid transport. So I'll put another star down there. We'll have your example of urban planning. I've done a separate video on those, as you'll find for lots of these, a separate video on Lagos as well. But yeah, that could be Makoko schools or bus rapid transport. Okay, right, the second part of section A will be on urban change. Now this is in the UK, not globally. And my students do Brighton, and we look at Brighton Marina, and we look at Brighton as a city as well, Brighton and Hove. So that will be the importance of the place. We will also look at sort of impacts of migration. Has it had any impacts on the city and the makeup of the city? Then opportunities and challenges again. They love that, it comes up often. And then because it's a case study, we look at an example of urban regeneration. Okay, so you can think about the place you studied. My students, it's the marina. And again, I've got a separate video on that for you. And then the last part of section A is on urban sustainability. So that's all about how cities, how cities can become more future focused, carbon zero. The case study for that is Freiburg in Germany. Okay, and topics that you could be asked about are like waste or energy conservation. So how are they recycling with waste, and how are they dealing with energy? They might ask you about creating green spaces, you know, planting trees, vertical farming, those kind of things. And then finally, urban transport strategies. Okay, again, I have another video on Freiburg that you can watch. Okay, then section 2, so section B is very different. It's all about development. It's a bit more about kind of money and wealth and things like that. So the first section is on measures of development. I think these very often trip people up. They're not that difficult, but they are one you do need to revise. So things like gross national income as a measure of development, birth rate, they can use death rate, literacy rate, so the number of people that can read or write, Life expectancy is a really good one. Tells us a lot about a country. Number of doctors, another one, what really linked to life expectancy, that one. And HDI, Human Development Index, which looks at 3 different measures. It looks at literacy rate, life expectancy, and GNI. Now, you would also be asked about the limitations of any of those, so what's good or bad about them. You might also get the demographic transition model. That could easily come up, and causes of uneven development. So maybe there's like historical causes like colonisation or other reasons. Okay, so quite a lot in that one. Don't fear it, but have a good go at revising some of those different parts of the spec. No case study specifically on that one until you come to reducing the development gap, which hopefully you remember a bit better. Reducing the development gap. In my classroom we play top trumps to learn a lot of these things. Country top trumps. Anyway, so reducing development gap, the case study is Jamaica. Okay, that one you should remember really well, and it looks particularly at tourism as a method of moving up and becoming more developed. You also need to know other methods, so you need to know about fair trade, what it is, how it works. Investment, so things like microfinance loans, aid, how giving aid to other countries, types of aid, that kind of thing, and debt relief. I have made other infographics on those ones as well. Okay, next up they ask you about a country. It's normally a lick or a knee, and it's a specific sort of case study on that country and how it's developed. I don't do a low-income country because there's no need. You can answer, just cross out lick and focus on knee. So I do Nigeria, which is a big one, big case study, and you need to know about things like industry there. You need to know about TNCs, transnational corporations, so Shell Oil, for example. The manufacturing sector is really big. Manufacturing, and I'll put Shell Oil in as well. Again, got videos on those. Okay, and then finally, I'm nearly there. Changes in the UK economy. I'll put that in capitals. Changes in the UK economy. So this is all about how we've moved into a sort of post-industrial economy now, and it'll be looking at things like modern industrial development. I've got one that I've done a case study on Rolls-Royce for you, and that's a very sustainable company as well. You might get asked about population growth and decline, so thinking about growth in Cambridgeshire and decline in the Outer Hebrides. You might get asked about transport improvements, so things like Liverpool 2. What else? The Southwest Superhighway, Terminal 4. So lots on transport improvements. Another one you might get is the North-South divide. And then the UK in the wider world. So obviously we've left the EU now, but our trading relations in the wider world. Okay, well done. That's the toughest section, I think. Section C is really nice. So it will start with food, water and energy in the UK. So if we start with food in the UK, so that's things like agribusiness. So you only have to watch Clarkson's Farm to know what that is. So big tractors, farms working together, growing monoculture, so one crop over a huge area, versus things like Riverford, organic produce or farming, which is very different, lots of different varieties, much smaller farms. Different people want different things, but it's about that awareness of food. And then water in the UK. So food in the UK, water in the UK is next. And that's a real sort of supply and demand situation as well. It's thinking about Kielder water, where water is stored up in the northwest and then transported down to the southeast. And it's also thinking about water quality and sort of pollution issues as well. And then, so we've had food, we've had water, we now need energy in the UK. Okay, energy, there we go. So that's about our energy mix. You might be asked, you know, where do we get our electricity from? It's about less fossil fuels, using less of those, rise in renewables. And if you want a case study for that, you've got Anglia 1, which is a big wind farm. There we go, big wind farm over on the east coast. I should have put stars there because they're all case studies as well. There we go. Right, and then finally you ignore question 4 and 5 and you jump to question 6, or my students do, sorry. So we do then the final bit, which is energy. It will get you to choose basically what you do, but whether you do global energy, global food or global water, your teacher will have taught you one of them, not all three. My students do global energy, not the others. So again, it's a supply demand or surplus and deficit type situation. So they'll want to know that you know a bit about that, surplus and deficit or insecurity of energy. They'll want to know that you have some strategies to increase supply of energy globally. They will want you to know an example of an area that is using fossil fuel. So you could be asked sort of the positives and negatives of fossil fuels. And then finally, you would need a low-income country or a newly emerging scheme. So for us, it's Chamba-Montera, which is in Peru, and it's a micro-hydro scheme. It's a micro-hydro scheme, there we go. And I have made a video on that separately, so you can take a look. But yeah, that's all of paper 2 in a nutshell. Really good luck with your revision. I have, everywhere that has a star, I've definitely got videos on, and a fair few others as well, so do have a look and hopefully it'll help.